Well, hello, Jen, and welcome to the podcast. I am so excited to be spending time with you today. And more importantly, I'm so excited that our audience is going to be able to learn a little bit about who Jen Coffel is and your story and the amazing things that you've done over the past few years since I've known you. So
Thanks.
that being said, I want to back it up a little bit because I know you've been a part of our community for many, many years. And you were also featured in one of our Overcoming Mediocrity books. But since then, your world has just kind of blown up. You've done so many great things. So, love for you to share with our audience a little bit about who you are.
Well, thanks, Christie. Yeah, it's been a fun 20-year journey in being an entrepreneur, and I know that there's a lot to share as far as like what the backstory is. But I started out actually. My background is I'm an occupational therapist by degree,
I
and
didn't
my
know that.
first yeah,
Wow.
and my first business was teaching people with disabilities how to drive. And so I started a private practice back in 1999. I still have my first dollar bill that I have, in a frame. My first, it was very much of a cash business, but it was a really awesome business because um, I got to do what I love to do, which is give people freedom. That's one of the things that I love is what's my core values is time freedom and freedom in general. And so, when you have a disability and you can't drive, being able to get back on the road, as you can imagine, is such a freedom experience. So I loved doing that, but I tried for 6 years to have kids. And so once we finally had kids, I really wanted to be home with them. So I sold my business. And I thought that what I sold it for would be enough money to get me through the time. Well, my first baby, she was adopted. I thought it was the only baby that we were going to have. And after like 5 months into having her, we got pregnant with twins through IVF. And then the next year, we got pregnant by surprise. So here I was,
Wow.
sold my business to be a stay-at-home mom with my one little girl, and thought that what I sold it for the time she was, a baby until she got to kindergarten. I thought I would go back to school, and I mean, she would go to school and I would go back to work is kind of what I was thinking. But then all these children came, and adoption is expensive, IVF is expensive, kids are expensive. So I went through all the money that I had sold the practice for and was broke. I mean, when I say broke, like we were really broke, and I'd never been in that position before. We were $1,000 short in our bills every single month,
Wow.
and it was becoming a snowball. And here we were with a 3-year-old, 2-year-old twins, and I was pregnant. No, they had 2-year-old, 1-year-old twins, and I was pregnant. So at one point we had 4 children, 3 and under. When my youngest Abby was born, we had 4 kids that were all in diapers, and they were 3 and
Wow.
younger. And I was starting a new business because I realized, like, if I didn't do something to be able to get us out of that financial situation, we were just going to be sunk, because my husband was also an occupational therapist, and he didn't get any bonuses or things like that. So like I had to find a way, and I didn't want to go back to working in a business outside of the house. So I started a network marketing business. And in that business, I really discovered my love for teaching people about business, because I treated my network marketing business like a traditional business in terms of like picking a target market and, really having marketing strategies, and not just, focusing on like sharing it with friends and family and that sort of thing. So I had a lot of success with that business. I built it to the largest in the state of Illinois, and, won their President's Club trips multiple times, and just actually had a lot of fun with it. But in that process, I discovered my love for teaching, women how to build businesses. And so that led me to starting a coaching business and, teaching business coaching. I built 4 businesses at 6 figures in less than 12 months, all in different industries. And there was methodology that one of my coaches, brought up to me, like, you have to be using some methodology, like to do that in all these different businesses, you have to be doing something. And I just thought, no, it's just like the way I think. And I really didn't think I could pull that out, but then I was able to, with time, like really reflect and look at what am I doing? Like, how am I doing that? And then get it out into a way that I could actually teach it. And so since then I've taught it to so many people, and the results have been amazing. And when I look at like what that teasing out process of like, what am I doing that has gotten these results? One of the things was speaking, like using speaking as the way that, really was helping me to generate leads. And that led me to, purchasing Engaging Speakers a few years back, and now being the CEO of Engaging Speakers organization. So I have a really crazy backstory of,
Yes, you
of
certainly
business,
do.
all different types of businesses, And it's been a really fun journey, and I've really enjoyed. I actually really love the work that I do, and it's been fun being able to like explore all the different ways to grow businesses.
Yeah. Well, you talk about speaking, and I know you are an amazing coach because I've not worked with you personally myself, but I know a lot of your clients firsthand, and I've seen their businesses just skyrocket and be, so transformational on how you've been able to help them. But I also know with speaking, you've had quite a journey in that area too. And when you share your story about the first time you spoke and then now, what you're
Mhm.
able to do when you get in front of an audience. That is just an incredible journey. So why don't you share with the audience a little bit about how that first experience was? And I promise I won't fall asleep.
Yeah, well, there it is. I put people to sleep. My first experiences with speaking, I remember just, front row looking at specifically one man because he started snoring.
Yeah,
That's
how
why
can
that
you miss
stood out.
that?
Yeah. And he was in the front row, and I'm, sharing and speaking, and he's falling asleep, and I could tell he's falling, started to nod his head. I'm like, oh, he's falling asleep. Oh, good thing he's in the
Somebody
front row.
catch him, please.
Right. Nobody's gonna know he's falling asleep. He's in the front row. And they started snoring, and I was like, okay, now the whole room knew that I put him to sleep. But since then, like I remember thinking, like, in that moment, I remember thinking, I have a lot to learn about this speaking thing. And so I actually, started learning more about how to do speaking. But it's funny, like when I look back at where I started and now, running an organization that is teaching other entrepreneurs how to use speaking and using that so much in my businesses. But I share that because, I think that it's one of those things that, they talk about speaking as like one of the biggest fears that people have, right?
Yes.
But it is in business, I find, when I look back at all my businesses that, I've had such growth with, it's really speaking has been the primary strategy in all of them that
Yep.
has resulted in the growth that I've experienced and the success I've had. And so I believe it's the best leveraged marketing strategy that we could use to grow our business. And I highly recommend it to everybody because, we could do it offline, we could do it online,
Mhm.
we can deconstruct a talk and use it like in Facebook Lives or in YouTube series or Instagram Lives, or, you know, your marketing message has an element of your signature talk. I mean, there's just so many ways to use speaking that I find, like, when you're wanting to grow fast and you're wanting to like leverage your time, there's no better way to do that than through speaking and podcasts, right? You can speak on
Right.
podcasts like we're doing today. So,
Yeah, but for me, speaking on a podcast is so much less scary than getting in a room with 300 people looking at you, which is why I'm in your speaking program, because I know
yeah.
that's definitely a support area that I need to work on. But so now you get on a stage, and I know you've had so many levels of success throughout the years. But one of the things that you really leverage speaking for is to connect with your audience,
Mhm.
provide them a ton of value, teach them or entertain them, and give them a little bit of wisdom. And then, invite them to work with you more. And that's what they call speak from the stage or speak to sell. And so
Mhm.
can you share about some of the successes you've had on this speak to sell journey? Because for our audience, and they hear about speaking and they think, well, okay, I can speak and maybe get paid $500 or a couple $1,000s to do a keynote. That's great. But there's so much more to speaking than getting paid on the front end. It's getting paid on the back end and just giving people a free something or other so then that you can help them, and then that could lead into more business. So share about that whole process.
Yes, absolutely. It is a really powerful process, and it's different. Like what you're talking about is a keynote. When you
Yes.
get paid to speak, it's like a company will hire you to come in and do a keynote and pay you for that. And, that can range, from a few $100s to 10,000 plus,
Yeah.
depending on, that's like, I would say the average, that somebody that's really out there as a professional speaker, they're making probably $10,000 on average. Of course, there's lots of people that make way more than that, but I
Yeah.
would say that's kind of when you look at the bell curve, what can you expect, right? But then, when you look at the way that you can use speaking to grow a business, if you have a strategically designed signature talk, which is what I call it, not a keynote talk, but a signature talk that's really designed around your core business,
Mhm.
that highlights your expertise in a classy way and attracts your ideal clients. It really does become a revenue generating machine in your business. It becomes like a way that you can control growth, you can predict revenue. It's highly leveraged. And so I'll give you an example of like how to think about that. So if you think about the value of a client for you, like what's the value of one new client? And let's just say it's $1,000.
Yeah.
Okay, just for simple
Easy
math.
math.
Exactly. And let's say you talk in front of a room of 40 people, which we could do that real easily, right? In
Yeah,
person,
easy.
online,
Yep.
40 people. It's really conservative. And let's say you from that talk, you schedule 25% of those 40, which is 10, right? 10 people to have a conversation with you from the talk, after the talk. And let's say conservatively, you have 30% become a client. So if you get $1,000 per client and you just had 10 conversations and 3 of the 10 become client, you've made $3,000 from that one talk,
Right.
right?
Yep.
So what if you did that once a week? Now that we're, lots of people are expanding their speaking virtually and like we can become international speakers, because of Zoom and
Yes.
ways that we communicate. What if you did that once a week? $3,000 a week in front of just small groups of 40, that's $12,000 a month
Right.
that you're making from your office doing a
Yeah.
talk. And, so it's really powerful.
Yeah.
And of course, I think most people, many people are making more than $1,000 a client. So like when you really start to look at like, wow, what is the possibilities? And if you ultimately get paid to speak on top of that, that's like, I feel like a cherry on the top. Like really the real power is in actually the ability to speak to sell. So I've had experiences where I've talked on a stage for I've made $150,000 in less than an hour through client work, which is, amazing. Like
Yes.
nobody's going to pay me that kind of money to
No.
talk for an hour in a
Exactly.
keynote. So I've talked for 20 minutes in front of 60 women, made $72,000, just from client work. So it's a really great way for you to grow your business and get control over your business. And so if that's something that interests you, the first step
Mm.
to really like being able to do that would be to know what your core genius is. And the reason that's important is because you really want to build your business, your core business around your core genius. Like your core profits should be really focused on what you're good at. And when I say core genius, what I mean by that is, whatever your job is, like you do lots of different things, Christy, but like when you think about being a publisher, you think about being a coach, like when somebody comes to you, you can answer this for yourself, who's ever listening, what is it that you do measurably better than others? Like if they hire you, what is it that you're going to do measurably better than others? Like you can tell that you get really incredible results in a specific area
Mm-hmm.
in your coaching or in your particular service or your business or whatever it is that you do. And this is oftentimes super hard for people to identify themselves.
For themselves. Absolutely. Yes.
So hard. And I have clients and when I do this with people, like I usually get 3 responses. Either they say, after we do this little, conversation, we get to their core geniuses, and some of them start crying because they just
They
feel
feel
this
stuck.
incredible,
Yeah.
yeah, like wow, I just like I'm just like crying out of happiness. Like I finally know what
Right.
is I do, or they start laughing because they're so excited about like yes, that's it, or they just started saying
Right.
yes. But that core genius is critical because it's like the foundation, of what you're going to speak about. Because if you're speaking around what you're really amazing at and it's coming from within you and it's something that I call core genius like what's in your core, like what were you created for, and then your genius is like what you've studied and become an expert in, and you put those 2 things together, it's really special. And when you think about like watching America's Got Talent or The Voice, who wins those? It's the people that are like standing in their truth,
Yes.
right? They
Yes.
might have missing teeth and they might not be the most beautiful, for what society would say is, beautiful to look at, but they're beautiful. they're
Right.
so beautiful because they are standing in their truth and they are so connected to what they were created to do. They've practiced, they've studied, they're awesome at it. And it just like it comes out of them and it emotionally just emotes from them.
Yeah.
And when you get that, then like actually speaking and sharing your in a talk is so magnetic, and it's
Yeah.
not as scary as it is when you're not in touch with that. When you're in touch with that and you actually build a talk around that, it actually flows out of you and it's super engaging versus like having something that's not really connected to you
Right. It's forced.
because
It's almost
it'll
forced.
sell.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, it's like you're like, "Okay, I should do this because this is what's gonna sell."
Right.
But actually it's really, it doesn't work as well, and there's a lot of frustration, a lot of spinning the wheels and not getting it quite right, but
And
once you
the audience can read that too. So they're basically not being drawn into you because you're not connected to it. They're not going to be connected to it.
absolutely, and then you get in your head, like, even when you hear somebody share their introduction, right? If they're in their head, it's, like, not connected. It's really the whole trick of it is getting in your heart.
Yeah.
It's really the trick of it. Like even on a podcast, even in a networking where you're just sharing your intro, when you're speaking, it's really the engaging ones are the ones that get out of their head and just come from their
Your
heart,
heart. Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And it's like when you can be moved and you can feel somebody, it's where the power is. And so it's like a lot easier than you think. It really is. It's like it you
Well, when you figure it out, it's a lot easier. But when you're on the other
yeah.
side of it, you don't know how to figure it out, then it seems like it's an impossible thing.
And that is absolutely the truth. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's totally the truth. So I think that's, the first step of it all to make it like what you just said, where it becomes easy and it's not so complicated. It doesn't feel so overwhelming. And so if it's feeling really hard, if your business is feeling really hard, if you're, wanting to go into the speaking and that's feeling really hard, it's probably foundationally that element is missing. Like you're really not super connected to what your core genius is
Mhm.
because everything isn't quite working well, right? And once you get that connected, then everything else that you learn will make more sense. And I'm not saying that you still don't need, support. Like if you've never built a business before, you could be an awesome chef, or you could be an awesome mechanic, or you could be an awesome website, tech person. But going out and building your business on your own is a whole nother animal, right? I mean, we
Right.
all experience that. But as long as you stay connected to your core genius, and in the process of going out there and trying to start your business, you don't get pulled away from that. And I think that sometimes what happens, like people get, oh, I'm really great at this. I want to go out and do it. And then they get into the business world and they realize, wow, this is a lot harder than I thought. And they start just borrowing what they see other people doing. And then they get so away from their core genius that they don't even like it anymore, right? They don't even like what they're doing anymore because of the way they're doing it.
Yeah, this shiny object syndrome, right? We all get like pulled away from different things. We see what other people are doing and we start losing track of what we're supposed to be doing and start like going in all these different directions.
Yeah, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. So, there is a lot to like sequencing and understanding like what is needed to build a successful business around your core genius, what your core business is. There is, I'm not saying that you don't need support in that because I would highly recommend that because it's a lot faster path. But that's like the first place I would be asking myself is, do I really know my core geniuses? And am I really like, is that clear to me? And if not, like I would start there. If you're interested in speaking or just building your business in general, like I would really encourage any listener to start like looking at that again.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my gosh, so much great information. And I know we are about ready to wrap up here shortly. But is there and I know you have a free gift for our audience, so I'm so excited for you to share that. But before we get to that, is there anything else, another tip that you may want to share about maybe where do we go to find our speaking? Like how could we get into that world? Like I know you've got a great organization, the
Mhm.
Engaging Speakers. You want to share a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So if speaking is, like, so we talked about core genius and like really getting your core message and like what is it that, what problems do you solve, what results do you bring? Like, that's really kind of all wrapped up in your 30-second introduction, which is, I think it's harder to speak for 30 seconds than
Yeah.
it is to speak for 30 minutes. So, you really want to get your core message clear and know the headaches that you solve and the results that you bring, and that is a first step. And the next step is like really learning that framework of how do I then take that and put it into a talk? Like, what is the design? How is it different than a keynote? I know there's a tendency to want to be very informational. Like when we are going to go out and speak about our service or our product or our business, we want to like get into a lot of process. And that's really not, I always encourage people to focus on, yes, you'd be educational, but do that inside a story because stories inspire and stories are what connect emotionally to people. So if you're going to go out and start speaking, you want to learn how to tell a story because your signature talk should be like 50% of it should be story. At least 50% of it should be story.
Yep.
So like your own personal origin story, like knowing how to tell your story. And a story is not a series of events.
Right.
It's really a story. And how do you tell a story? And there's 6 stages to a story. So learning how to tell a story, you need to have a character. You might be the character. Or when you're doing your signature talk and you're maybe making one of your powerful principle points, it could be a client story. That's what I recommend using because that's what's going to highlight your expertise in a classy way. That way you're not like kind of promoting yourself, but the listeners being inspired by your expertise by hearing the story of how you've transformed a client's life. So when you tell a story, I guess I can share that to start with, Christy, is I'll share the framework of a signature talk. And then I'll share, right now, I'll share like the 6 stages of a story, because those are, I think, the 2 big pieces. So because 50% of your talk is a story, you want to know the stages of the story. So the first stage, when you're going to share a story, is to start off with what's normal, kind of setting the stage. And thinking about like you want somebody when they're hearing you tell the story to be able to envision what it was like, what was normal and what were things like. And then the next stage is what changed.
Mm-hmm.
So everything was normal and then something occurred, and what was it that occurred, what changed? And the third stage caused the change. What was the trigger that caused that change is an important element. That's number 3, what caused the change. Number 4 is the fight the dragon. That's where the struggle occurs. And that's a really interesting part of the story. And then the 5th stage is who did you have to become, or who did the character have to become as a result of the fight, the challenge. And then the 6th part is then what's the new normal. And that's like what you want to take people on in terms of a journey of a story, and learning how to tell your personal story in that way and client stories in that way.
Yeah.
Now, as far as like teaching the framework, I'll share a quick framework for a signature talk. Number 1, you want to have a working title. So this is the overall umbrella result that you bring. Then you want to identify, you want to have your origin story, your personal story. Then you want to share what your talk is, who your talk is for. This talk is for you if, like, whatever the struggles are, the headaches that you solve.
Mm-hmm.
And then what are the cool things that they're going to learn in your talk? What are the results that they're going to receive? Then you want to share 3 powerful principles. And each of those principles are things that your ideal client would need to know, believe, do, or have in order to get the ultimate result that you bring. Then you do a review of your points. Then you make an offer for a gift for everybody in the room that would be potentially an ideal client now or in the future. They would want this really great digital resource that you can offer. And then you end with an offer to have that conversation like we talked about earlier, like a session with you. And we don't want to call it like I'm going to, offer everybody a 30-minute, we don't want to do any of that. We want to give a limited number. We don't want to say how long it is, and we want to call it a session. Like I might say a speak your way to over 100K session. Mm-hmm. Like we want to name a session which is tied to the result that you bring. And then we want to close, whether it's a closing story or a quote or something. But that's the template. I know that was a lot to share.
It was a lot.
But it's like, that's the secret sauce to like being able to speak and really get the type of results that where you can speak for an hour and make 6 figures in 1 hour just from speaking, from client work. That's the secrets to doing that. And so it's worth learning. I had no idea about any of that. Back when I told you I was putting people to sleep, I was doing what everybody usually does. You know,
Yeah.
they get up and just start teaching. Let me tell you all this stuff
Right,
I know,
right.
process
Just
and
kind of
stuff. But
throw
it's,
up on them with all this
yeah,
information, and then, yes, I totally understand. I can relate to that.
yeah, and it doesn't work. So,
No, it
you
does.
know, it's like there, that's what I spent a lot of years figuring out. And it's so fun now. You know, it's fun now when you can get to talk about what you are passionate about,
Yeah.
and you do it in a way that's effective, and
Yeah.
that makes you feel like, you know, you have a way to have fun marketing your business instead of like it being a
Gosh.
hard, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. When you have the audience just listening to you intently and they're taking notes and they're so engaged, and when you're
Yeah.
done, they come up to you and they want more from you. I mean, that is when you know you are in the right place. You figured out your core genius. You learn how to connect with them. And now you can help them further by what other ways that you can support them.
Yeah. And isn't that what we all want? Like we all have
Yes.
businesses, we have services, we want to be able to do what we want
Yeah.
to do. You know, it's like that's the best feeling in the world when you're able to, you know, really help and meet that need that
Yeah.
people have. So engaging speakers is a, you know, that's the organization that we were talking about that we have a vision of really wanting to have like 200 chapters worldwide, you know, where
Oh,
we have
yeah.
entrepreneurs coming together and, you know, just learning together and speaking their way to more business together. And so it's a great community. It's a place that you can come and, you know, just learn these strategies and practice. We do like a couple of Fridays a month. We have our members come on and they get to practice their signature talk and they get coaching on it. So that way you have a safe place to come and get honest feedback and, you know, help you tweak it so that when you go out and in front of potential prospects that you get the best results possible.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have a virtual membership, thank goodness. So people from all
Yeah,
over can get connected, which
yeah,
is
it's super
great.
fun to meet people from everywhere, and that's kind of the central thing that brings us all together. You know, we're all entrepreneurs, and it's men and women and all ages, and they just have a desire to learn how to use speaking as a strategy to grow their business. And
Yeah.
we do hot seat coaching on your 30-second intro, so you can come and learn, watch people be on the hot seat, and you know that's fun. It's
Yeah.
nerve wracking for them, but it's an awesome experience and a great little free speaking spot to get some coaching and get better at your 30-second intro too.
Yeah. Yeah. I learned so much just from watching other people and
Yeah.
from watching them get coached by you and Louie. And so that's to me one of the best parts of being in the community is just learning through examples from other people. So
It's fun.
yeah.
Yeah, I really love it. And we bring on guest speakers. So if somebody's really great, you know, that's listening that wants to be able to come in front of a group of entrepreneurs that, you know, would like a speaking opportunity, like that's another great organization to reach out to because we have multiple chapters and every chapter needs guest speakers. So that would be another
Yeah.
resource for your listeners if they are wanting to speak, that they could come and, you know, potentially speak on our stage.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Actually, one of my friends was one of the speakers at one of your events
Yeah.
earlier in the year. So she really enjoyed it. All right, my dear. Well, thank you so much. I know you have a free gift to offer the community, and we will definitely be putting all of the links for Jen's free gift, as well as engaging speakers, her website, everything in the show notes below. But why don't you share a little bit about what you're going to be giving our audience?
Absolutely. So one of the things I love to give away is I believe that mindset comes before skill set.
Mm.
And I read, if you haven't read this book, it's by Jack Canfield. It's called Success Principles, and there's 67 principles in his book. And I have devoured that book. In fact, I had to buy a second copy because the front cover and the back cover fell off of the first copy, and it's just like complete. Now the second copy is pretty worn out as well, and so in that process of devouring that book, I have identified 17 principles out of the 67 that really I feel have been the foundation principles that have helped me to be successful in the businesses that I've had. So I recorded a video for each one of those principles and have like application questions and a digital workbook. And so it's an awesome course on mindset. And just I'm not a mindset coach. I mean, sometimes I will address that with clients when we're working together if it becomes an issue, but I really believe that your belief and how you think has so much to do with the results that we have, right? And it's like we can teach strategy and we can teach all kinds of business, you know, strategies and marketing, all kinds of things, but without the mindset being right, like it doesn't
Right.
work. So I love to give that away for free. And so you can go to choosetimeandfreedom.com and just download the course for free. And if you want, you can have one principle, show up in your inbox every week for 17 weeks. It's a great way to digest it. But I love giving that because I feel like if you could get that part right, and have a healthy mindset, then everything else that you're learning is gonna get much better results, and you're gonna see much more success. So that's my gift to everybody is just helping you, in that way, and building your belief, and just really helping you to become all that God created you to be.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much again, Jen, for joining us. I can't wait for this episode to air and everybody can learn all of these great tips and then connect with you. So I will be seeing you again really, really soon, I'm sure. But thanks
Thank you,
again.
Christie.
All
Thanks for
right.
having me.
Thank you.